You're going to die in the next 4 minutes. You know this because you've just watched the man beside you, a Viennese baker who learned to hold a musket 3 weeks ago, take a cannonball to the chest. His body didn't fly backward like in the stories. It just folded, like wet parchment. And now you're staring at the gap he left in the wall, and through that gap you can see them. Thousands of them. The Janissaries are coming again, and this time they're bringing the mines. It's September 1683. You're standing on a wall that's been hammered by Ottoman artillery for 60 days straight. The wall is losing. You're losing. Vienna is dying 1 yard at a time, and every man defending her knows that when she falls. And she will fall, the math is clear. There won't be a surrender negotiation. There will be stakes. There will be screaming. There will be a new western border of the Ottoman Empire drawn right through the heart of Europe. The greatest army the world has ever seen is camped outside. 200,000 men under the command of Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa. A man so confident of victory, he's already ordered his architects to begin planning the mosque that will replace St. Stephen's Cathedral. He's brought his harem with him. His concubines are watching this siege like it's theater. That's how certain this is. Inside the walls you have 11,000 men. Most of them are sick. All of them are starving. The wells are poisoned. The hospitals are overflowing. The commander, Count Rudiger von Starhemberg, hasn't slept in a week. And every morning, he climbs these walls and looks north toward the Vienna woods, searching the tree-line for something that isn't coming. A relief force, an army, a miracle. Because somewhere out there, maybe, possibly, if the letters got through and if God is listening, there's a Polish king riding south with a promise to do the impossible. But the mines are 60 feet from the wall now. You can hear them digging. And in 4 minutes, this whole section is going to erupt like a volcano. So answer me this. When the greatest Islamic army in history is about to punch through the last wall protecting Christian Europe, what can one king possibly do to stop it? Jan Sobieski is 54 years old, grotesquely fat, and suffering from gout so severe he can barely mount his horse without help. He is also the only man in Europe who isn't afraid of Kara Mustafa. He's marching south with 18,000 Polish cavalry and a promise that sounds insane. He will break the Ottoman siege in a single day. Not outlast them. Not outmaneuver them. Break them. Most of the Holy Roman Empire's generals think he's delusional. They've spent 2 months watching the Ottomans dismantle Vienna's defenses like clockwork, and now this Polish king, this provincial warlord from the edge of Christendom, thinks he can reverse it with one charge? But Sobieski has done his homework. He's fought the Turks before at Khotan at Lwów, in battles where he was outnumbered 5-1 and still walked away. He knows their formations. He knows their blind spots. And he knows something the Ottoman commanders have forgotten in their centuries of victory. Hubris is a tactical weakness. The march takes 16 days. 16 days of rain turning the roads to soup. 16 days of German and Austrian reinforcements joining his column, swelling his numbers to 70,000. It sounds impressive until you remember there are 200,000 Ottomans waiting on the other side of those woods. The math still doesn't work. On September 11th, Sobieski's scouts return from the Vienna woods with a report that makes his blood freeze. The Ottomans have detection posts on the high ground. They know he's coming. Kara Mustafa is already repositioning his forces, pulling 25,000 men away from the siege to face the relief army. The element of surprise, the one advantage Sobieski was counting on, is gone. Worse, Vienna's walls are hours from collapse. The Ottoman mines detonated yesterday. Massive craters now gape in the fortifications. The Janissaries poured through in waves, and only a desperate counterattack by Starhemberg's last reserves pushed them back. Barely. The next assault will finish it. Everyone knows this. Sobieski has 1 night to get his army into position on the high ground overlooking the Ottoman camp. 1 night to coordinate with commanders who've never fought together. 1 night to devise a battle plan that defies every conventional military doctrine of the age. And as his officers gather in his tent that evening, arguing over maps by candlelight, a messenger stumbles in. He's pale, shaking. The Ottomans aren't waiting for morning. They're launching the final assault on Vienna right now. The night sky over Vienna turns orange. From his position in the Vienna woods, Sobieski can see the glow. He knows what it means. Somewhere in those streets, the Ottomans have breached the inner defenses. Somewhere down there, Viennese soldiers are fighting room to room, house to house, buying time they don't have with blood they can't spare. His army isn't ready. Half his forces are still threading through the forest trails in total darkness. The Germans are lost somewhere on the northern slope. The Austrian cavalry hasn't even made contact with his vanguard. And the battle plan, the careful, coordinated assault he spent 16 days perfecting, requires daylight, high ground, and 8 hours of preparation time. He has none of those things. Sobieski makes the call anyway. At 4 a.m. on September 12th, he orders his lead elements to advance. Not the full army. Just enough to make the Ottomans notice. Just enough to pull their attention away from Vienna's crumbling walls. It works too well. The first Polish cavalry units emerge from the treeline onto the slopes of Kahlenberg mountain just as dawn breaks. They're supposed to be a probing force, a distraction. Instead, they run face-first into an Ottoman regiment that was already climbing the same slope from the opposite direction. The collision is immediate and horrific. Horses scream. Sabers clash in the half-light. Men who can't see 10 feet in front of them are suddenly killing each other at arm's length. This isn't the battle. This is chaos. This is two blind armies stumbling into contact hours before either side is ready. And now Sobieski has a problem. His advance units are engaged, which means he can't pull them back without triggering a rout. But if he reinforces them now, he'll be feeding his cavalry piecemeal into a meat grinder, exactly the mistake that lost the last 3 Christian armies their wars against the Turks. Behind him, the main body of his forces is still trapped in the woods, trying to navigate terrain in the dark. Ahead of him, the Ottoman army is waking up, alert now, pulling units away from Vienna to face this new threat. And in Vienna itself, Starhemberg's messengers are screaming for help that isn't coming. The sun is rising. The Ottomans can see his numbers now. They're counting his banners, calculating his strength, realizing he's not nearly as strong as they feared. And then the Ottoman artillery opens fire. Not at Vienna, at him. The first cannonball takes the head off Sobieski's standard-bearer. It happens so fast the man's body stays in the saddle for 3 full seconds before toppling sideways, the Polish royal banner still clutched in his dead fingers, the white eagle soaked in red mist. And that's when Sobieski realizes Kara Mustafa isn't playing defense. He's playing chess. The Ottoman artillery isn't trying to break the relief army. It's trying to pin it. Every shell that screams overhead is forcing Sobieski's cavalry to spread out, to take cover, to lose momentum before the real battle even begins. And while his forces are scattered across the mountainside, dodging cannon fire, the Janissaries are forming up in the valley below. Neat, disciplined lines. Muskets loaded. Waiting. This is the trap. Sobieski was supposed to have the high ground advantage. He was supposed to charge downhill with the full weight of his cavalry behind him, smashing into the Ottoman flank like a hammer. Instead, he's stuck on a slope taking artillery fire, his forces disorganized, his battle plan disintegrating by the minute. And Kara Mustafa knows it. From his command tent, the Grand Vizier can see everything. He's repositioned 40,000 men to face this threat. He's anchored his line with veteran Janissary regiments, the most elite infantry in the world, soldiers who've never broken under cavalry charge. He's dug trenches, placed stakes, turned the valley floor into a killing field designed specifically to butcher horsemen. Sobieski's officers are screaming at him to wait, to pull back into the woods, to delay the assault until the full Christian army is assembled and ready. It's the smart move, the safe move, the move that gives them a chance. But Vienna doesn't have hours. Vienna has minutes. Every second he waits is another yard of wall the Ottomans take. Another street that falls. Another 100 civilians who won't see sunset. So Sobieski does something no military commander in his position should do. He splits his force. He sends the German infantry, 20,000 men under Charles of Lorraine, straight down the center to engage the Janissaries head-on. A frontal assault. A suicide march. While they're dying in the valley, he'll take his Polish cavalry wide, circling around the Ottoman left flank, buying time to organize the charge he actually needs. It's a desperate gamble. It means sending men to die as a distraction. The Germans fix bayonets. They begin their descent. And halfway down the slope, they realize the Ottomans have a second line they didn't know about. The German infantry hits the Ottoman line like a wave against a cliff. And then the cliff starts killing them. The Janissaries don't break. They don't even flinch. They fire in perfect rotation. Front rank shoots, kneels, reloads while the second rank fires. A mechanical rhythm of death that turns the valley into an abattoir. German soldiers are falling in clusters, 5 and 6 at a time, and the ones still standing have to climb over their own dead just to get within bayonet range. When they finally reach the Ottoman line, it gets worse. The Janissaries switch to yataghans, curved blades designed specifically for close-quarter butchery, and suddenly it's not a battle anymore. It's surgery. Methodical, efficient, horrifying. You can smell it from 100 yards away. Not just blood. Gunpowder and loosened bowels and the sickly sweet copper stench of exposed organs. Men are screaming for their mothers in German, in Turkish, in languages that don't have words for this kind of pain. The ground is slick. Soldiers are slipping in mud that isn't mud. And the worst part? It's working. Sobieski's desperate gamble is working. The Germans are dying exactly as planned. Slowly enough to keep the Janissaries occupied, to lock them in place, to prevent Kara Mustafa from shifting his forces. Every minute the Germans hold is another minute Sobieski has to move his cavalry into position. But those minutes cost everything. Charles of Lorraine takes a musket ball through the shoulder and keeps fighting. His second-in-command goes down with a yataghan through the ribs. Entire companies are reduced to a dozen men. The regimental colors fall 3 times. 3 times someone picks them up. Up on the ridge, Sobieski's cavalry is finally assembled. 18,000 Polish Hussars, the most feared heavy cavalry in Europe, arranged in a formation so vast it stretches nearly 2 miles across the mountainside. Their armor catches the afternoon sun. Their lances, 18 feet long, tipped with steel, form a forest of points aimed downhill. They're ready. Finally, catastrophically ready. But Sobieski hesitates, because he can see something from his vantage point that his officers can't. The Ottoman Reserve, a full division of Sipahi cavalry, elite Turkish horsemen, positioned perfectly to countercharge the moment his hussars commit. If he charges now and those Sipahis hit his flank mid-descent, it's over. The entire Christian cavalry will shatter. But if he waits any longer, there won't be any Germans left to save. His hand goes to his saber, and that's when the Ottomans release their secret weapon. Camels, 200 of them, draped in armor, carrying swivel guns on their backs. And they're stampeding directly into the German flank. Nobody in the Christian army has ever seen anything like it. The beasts are massive, alien, terrifying, and the noise they make, that guttural bellowing scream, sends horses into panic. The German cavalry on the left flank breaks before the camels even reach them. Just breaks. Centuries of military discipline evaporating in seconds as their mounts rear and bolt. And riding behind the camels? 5,000 Ottoman cavalry, sabers raised, pouring through the gap like water through a shattered dam. The German infantry line collapses. Not everywhere, not all at once, but in critical places. Whole companies are encircled, cut off, butchered where they stand. Charles of Lorraine is screaming orders that nobody can hear over the chaos. His center is holding barely, but his flanks are gone, disintegrated. And now the Janissaries are advancing, pressing forward with the mechanical patience of men who know they've already won. From the ridge, Sobieski watches his entire strategy unravel. The Germans were supposed to pin the Ottomans in place for another hour. They're not going to last another 10 minutes. If he doesn't charge now, right now, the valley will become a massacre and the Ottoman army will turn its full attention to Vienna's walls. The city will fall before sunset. But the Sipahi cavalry is still there, still waiting. 3,500 elite horsemen positioned perfectly to annihilate his flank. Charging into that is suicide. His son is beside him, Jakub, 19 years old, wearing his first suit of hussar armor. The boy is pale, shaking, He can see what his father sees. He knows what's coming. "Father," Jakub whispers, "we can't win this." And for the first time in the entire campaign, Sobieski doesn't have an answer. Because his son is right. The math doesn't work. It never worked. Even if his charge succeeds, even if he breaks through the Ottoman line, Kara Mustafa still has 150,000 men. The relief army is outnumbered 3-1. This was always going to end one way. Below them, a German regiment's colors fall for the fourth time. This time, nobody picks them up. Sobieski closes his eyes. When he opens them, his hand is steady on his saber hilt. "We don't need to win," he says quietly. "We just need to make them believe they can lose." He raises his saber high, and 18,000 hussars begin their descent into hell. The charge begins at a trot. 18,000 horses moving as one, controlled, disciplined, the ground trembling beneath their weight. Sobieski is at the front, his gout-ridden body strapped into the saddle, his saber pointed toward the Ottoman line 2 miles below. The hussars behind him are silent. No war cries, no songs, just the thunder of hooves and the metallic whisper of 18-foot lances shifting in formation. At 800 yards, they break into a canter. The Ottoman Sipahi cavalry sees them coming. Their commander raises his hand, waiting for the perfect moment to launch the countercharge that will shatter this assault. He's done this before. He knows exactly when to release his horsemen. Not too early, not too late. Timing is everything. At 400 yards, the hussars reach full gallop. And that's when physics takes over. 18,000 cavalry moving downhill at maximum speed becomes an avalanche of muscle and steel. The lances lower as one, a forest of death aimed at a single point. The wings attached to each hussar's back, massive arcs of eagle feathers, begin to hum in the wind, creating a sound like nothing else on earth. A shriek, a roar, the sound of God's own fury descending from the mountain. The Sipahi commander gives the order to countercharge. His cavalry surges forward. 3,500 elite horsemen, the pride of the Ottoman Empire, thundering uphill to meet the Poles head-on. It should work. Uphill charges bleed momentum. The Ottomans have the angle. They have the experience. But they don't have the weight. The collision occurs at 200 yards from the Janissary line. The impact is so violent it's heard in Vienna 3 miles away. Horses shatter against horses. Men are impaled mid-charge. Lances punch clean through armor, through bodies, through the riders behind them. The Sipahi line doesn't slow the hussars. It disintegrates on contact. And the Polish cavalry keeps coming. They hit the Janissary infantry like a cannonball through glass. The elite Ottoman soldiers, men who have never broken, who have held against every cavalry charge in their careers, try to form squares, try to brace, try to do everything their training demands. It doesn't matter. The hussars are moving too fast, weighing too much. The Janissary line buckles, cracks, and then explodes into fragments of screaming men. Sobieski is in the center of it, saber swinging, his horse trampling bodies. His son is beside him, blood-soaked and screaming. And then Sobieski's horse goes down, a pike through the chest. The animal collapses mid-stride. The King of Poland disappears beneath a wave of Ottoman infantry. Jakub Sobieski sees his father fall and something inside him breaks. Not fear, not panic. Something older, something primal. He wheels his horse around, screaming his father's name, and charges back into the collapsing Ottoman formation alone. 3 hussars follow him, then 10, then 50. A reverse tide of Polish cavalry crashing back into the gap where their king went down. They find him 30 seconds later, on his feet, surrounded by 6 dead Janissaries. His saber is broken. He's fighting with a Turkish scimitar he pulled from a corpse, and there's blood pouring from a gash above his eye. He's laughing, actually laughing. Jakub pulls him onto his own horse. They don't speak. There's no time. The Janissary line is reforming around them, closing like a fist. But the hussars are pouring through now, widening the breach, and behind them come the German cavalry, what's left of them, and the Austrian reserves, and suddenly the entire Christian army is inside the Ottoman formation like a dagger in the ribs. Kara Mustafa watches from his command tent and finally understands what's happening. This isn't a battle. This is a decapitation strike. Sobieski isn't trying to defeat his army. He's trying to reach the command center, to take the tent, to kill the Grand Vizier himself. And he's going to make it. Kara Mustafa gives the order he swore he'd never give. Full retreat. Abandon the siege. Abandon the artillery. Abandon everything. Every Ottoman unit still fighting at Vienna's walls receives the same message. Pull back to the camp. Defend the vizier. Now, it's the right tactical decision. It's also the moment the entire siege collapses. 25,000 Ottoman soldiers disengage from Vienna and start running south toward the camp. But they're not an army anymore. They're a mob. And the Christian cavalry is right behind them, cutting them down from behind, turning retreat into rout. Inside Vienna, Starhemberg watches the Ottoman trenches empty. He doesn't understand what's happening, can't see the battlefield from his position. But he knows an opportunity when God hands him one. He orders the gates opened. Every soldier who can still walk pours out of the city and joins the pursuit. The Ottoman camp is in chaos. Soldiers are grabbing gold, supplies, anything they can carry, and fleeing south. Kara Mustafa's personal guard is forming a defensive ring around his tent. But it's too thin, too late. Sobieski and his hussars smash through the perimeter like a fist through paper. The Grand Vizier's tent is right there, 50 yards away, and then the ground beneath Sobieski's horse explodes. The Ottomans have one mine left, and they just detonated it. The explosion throws Sobieski 15 feet. He lands hard, armor absorbing the impact, ears ringing, vision blurred. Around him, horses are screaming, thrashing with shattered legs. Men are scattered across the crater rim, some moving, most not. The blast was supposed to kill him. It should have killed him. But Kara Mustafa's engineers miscalculated. They buried the mine too deep. Instead of obliterating the Polish king, they've just created a wall of smoke and debris between him and the Grand Vizier's tent. Sobieski staggers to his feet, finds another horse, mounts it before his officers can stop him, and charges through the smoke. What he finds on the other side is abandonment. Kara Mustafa's tent is empty. The Grand Vizier fled minutes ago, galloping south with his personal cavalry, leaving his army to fend for itself. The sacred banner of the Prophet Muhammad, brought all the way from Constantinople to bless this campaign, lies trampled in the mud. Ottoman soldiers are streaming past in full panic, throwing down weapons, tearing off their uniforms, running for their lives. The pursuit becomes a slaughter. Christian cavalry chases fleeing Ottomans for 12 miles, cutting them down in the open fields. Entire regiments surrender without fighting. Others are drowned trying to cross the Danube. By sunset, 200,000 becomes 50,000. By midnight, it's less than that. Inside the Ottoman camp, the Christian army discovers a city. Literally a city. 10,000 tents. Warehouses of grain. Artillery parks with 300 cannons. A menagerie with exotic animals. Kara Mustafa's personal treasure. Chests of gold, jewels, silk. Enough wealth to fund a kingdom for a decade. And the harem. 1,400 women, abandoned by their protectors, staring in terror at the European soldiers now surrounding them. Sobieski gives the order. No prisoners are to be harmed. No women touched. Anyone who disobeys will hang. It's a radical command after a battle this brutal. But his officers enforce it. The plunder is enough. Men are wading through gold coins, wearing Ottoman silk like cloaks. One Austrian soldier finds Kara Mustafa's personal ostrich egg collection and smashes them on the ground, laughing hysterically. Vienna is saved. The Ottoman army is shattered. The siege is over. But as the sun sets on September 12th and Sobieski finally allows himself to breathe, a messenger arrives from the south, covered in dust, barely able to speak. Kara Mustafa escaped. He's regrouping, and he's sent a message back to Constantinople. This isn't over. The Sultan is sending another army. The second army never comes. Because 3 months later, in a silk tent outside Belgrade, Kara Mustafa Pasha kneels before the Sultan's executioner and receives the bowstring. Strangulation, the traditional death for failed Ottoman commanders. His head is stuffed with straw and displayed in Constantinople as a warning. The Grand Vizier who promised to conquer Europe died because he couldn't hold a single city. But walk the battlefield at Vienna 3 days after the fighting, and you'll understand why the Sultan was so furious. 10,000 Ottoman dead, most of them in the valley where the Hussars charged. Bodies stacked so thick you can't see the ground. The smell is unbearable. Viennese citizens are dragging corpses into mass graves. But there are too many. They give up and start burning them. The smoke rises for a week. The wealth captured is beyond calculation. 300 cannons. 9,000 tents. Enough grain to feed Vienna for a year. Gold and jewels worth millions. The sacred banner of Muhammad, the one that's blessed every Ottoman military campaign for 2 centuries, now hangs in a Polish church. A trophy, a humiliation, and the psychological damage? Irreversible. The Ottoman Empire has spent 300 years expanding. Unstoppable. Inevitable. The conquest of Vienna was supposed to be the beginning of their push into Germany, into France, into the heart of Europe. Instead, it becomes the high-water mark, the furthest they'll ever reach. After Vienna, the Ottomans never threaten Europe again. They spend the next 2 centuries retreating, losing territory, collapsing inward. One battle, one day, one charge down a mountainside. That's all it took to reverse 3 centuries of history. Sobieski returns to Poland a legend. The Pope calls him the savior of Christendom. Every court in Europe sends him gifts. Marriage proposals for his sons flood in from royal families who wouldn't acknowledge him before Vienna. He's the hero of the age. He dies 13 years later, largely forgotten. His kingdom broke, his political influence wasted. Because that's how history works. The world remembers the battle, forgets the man. But here's what nobody talks about. That mine beneath Sobieski's horse? The one that exploded at the worst possible moment and somehow didn't kill him? Ottoman engineers found the detonation mechanism afterward. The fuse was cut, deliberately severed. Someone on the Ottoman side sabotaged their own weapon. They never found out who, and they never found out why. Some mysteries even history can't answer. But the question remains. Who saved the man who saved Europe?